Hello, Daniel, naturopath here. I just wanted to continue some of this conversation on the lung system and talk about um, one of the key elements to heal the environment. Um, an air filtration system is key to be able to filter out nanoparticles, VOCs, and all these polymers and phthalates and epoxies and things that are in our walls from the sheetrock on down to, especially in the newer smell, new car smell, new apartment smell, whatever, paints. So all of these volatile organic compounds, they enter into the lung system. And it's just like, well, you're trying to avoid endocrine disruptors in general, and the food and the plastics and the soy fed animals, and in so many different things to where the body can maintain its masculine and feminine features without everything just getting all mixed in, and the tissues getting overly soft here or overly hard here, or whatever. And so you go through all that trouble and then you're breathing it in. So that's one of these key dangers, and so the best air filtration system you're going to be able to find is from a company called IQAir. Now they make the best. They were the inventors of the Hepa filter, which was invented around the. I think this was invented for the firefighters. Give them filtration when they went into fires and stuff. And now it's been developed. It's well known. But what people don't know is the Hepa filter is not what the IQAir uses now. They use an advanced HEPA filter, which is the only HEPA filter which is capable of removing point 0.03 or point no 0.03 microns. It's either point 0, no, it's point 0.3 microns. Yeah, point 0.3 microns, whereas most HEPA filters guarantee 3 microns. So this is a huge difference in size and particulate. Um, so when you're able to filter out at such a low level particulate, you can actually filter even radioactive iodine out of the air through the system. I mean, it comes through a carbon-based system. There's like 10 pounds of carbon as part of the filter. They're pretty big, but you want them to be big. You don't want a very small air filter, because we're trying to emulate God's work, I guess. We're trying to emulate the lung system, and we're not as good as at creating that. And so we need a bigger system in order. So the size of it is not because they're old time fashioned, it's because they're intelligent. So you need a bigger system, and it's not that big, but anyway. And they're quiet. Some people even like the low level noise, just like a little bit in the room, especially because now we have a lot of other noises like that are forced on us from the outside, and ultrasound and different types of sound that we don't, infrasound, I think it's called, yeah, infrasound, other types of sound that we don't pay attention to, but that are part of every electrical component, electromagnetic frequencies. There's a lot of sounds that come through all of these different things in our homes, water heaters and electrical appliances and stuff, and even outdoors like exhaust systems. And so it can mask a little bit of that, um, but it's very important, because once you can get some of this radioactive iodine out of the air, depending on where you're at and depending on the air around you, you have kind of a little secret weapon in your room. Um, it's also important for colds. People that have a mold and colds and is kind of sick all the time, and mold. One of the reasons that there's a lot of mold, I mean, it's also dependent on your region, right? Of course, but one of the reasons in certain regions where there's not mold, there would be mold, is an unknown reason, I guess you could say, is that there's no trees. And so you have these apartments, you buy these apartments, there's no trees anywhere, or not many. And then we have, the trees pull the water out of the soil and they pull it up, and there's a kind of like, a homeostasis that's maintained there. And when the trees are not there, well, that water just stays down in there and creates the beginning of a kind of a mold state, and then on top of that, these first floor apartments are usually more affected by mold. this is all depending on a lot of factors, if there's stuff within the walls and if there's, human error and all these other things. But in general, an apartment that's filled with trees, like my apartment where I'm living in California, there's so many trees all around. I mean, even on my front door, like I open the door, there's like 3 or 4 trees right there. And so all of that is pulling the mold out of the ground, or the possibility. And so then, as long as we're not making mistakes on top of that, it's okay. It's also a drier climate to a certain degree, so you have that. But so yeah, so they have the IQAir. They even have mini IQAirs, which you can use for personal. Like I have one over here. Let me see if I can show that to you. Let's see here. Yeah. This one. It's like a little teeny round unit, and it just shoots a stream of air exactly at the nostril, and you keep it about 20, 30 inches away from you. I mean, it does have a little bit of EMF, because it's Bluetooth, and that's unfortunate that they didn't make that part, manual, like where you could, bypass it. But it's actually far enough away to where that electromagnet, it stays around the unit, that exact type of frequency. So it's okay. So 20 to 30 centimeters away, and you have perfect air coming to you at all times, no matter, even if there's poison in the air. I'm not saying it's going to filter everything and that you're not getting normal air too, but like in general, a lot of what you're getting, if you're letting it aim right at your nostril, you're getting mostly that. Of course, if you were in some very strange situation, then yeah, you probably get right next to it, to where that was all you were getting. But and then the bigger version, which I'll try to show you here. Well, let's see here. Put my computer on top of it, but this is it. It's a bigger version, and that is also used for more of the room. Like a nicer size room, it'll filter. So you have a safe space. That's basically it. You create safe space. So there's a lot of remedies you can use for healing the cold, the throat. I'm actually going through something right now, so I'm applying. I've learned techniques to speed everything up. Like when something happens, I moved to California. You have to adapt. So you adapt to that. Things come out. There's detoxification. All these things happen. Sometimes you have to adjust your homeopathic remedies when you move, and so just I've learned how to speed things up when things do happen. I like to be sick, to be honest with you. It doesn't happen very often, but I like it when it happens, like a really dark flu kind of thing. I'm always like, oh, clean me out, because I understand the nature of detoxification. I understand the nature of, most of us are going to be detoxifying for the rest of our lives if we have the strength to do it, or we're going to be stuck on some sort of strange medication because we can't see the real etiology of our diseases, and which are probably coming from intoxication and lack of detoxification throughout the life cycle. So once we start realizing some of these parts, we won't get stuck into this other paradigm, the medical enslavement paradigm, but which is highly American, strangely, and in France, I guess it's a little different. But then again, the food's different, so that changes a lot, The air was really bad when I lived in Paris. So not just because of Paris, but also because I feel there was things being put into the air. But that's my own personal experience. And then there was also Chernobyl, and you could say, oh, that was a long time ago. But that's completely a myth that has anything to do with why, like, everybody knows in Europe that those compounds and molecules that were created through Chernobyl will last thousands of years and will still be in the environment. They don't just disappear. And so those things are still affecting people today. Thyroid medication is the number one medication in France. It's a huge, epidemic, I guess you could say. So I had to go through that there too. And sometimes I wonder if it didn't contribute to some of my hair loss when I was there. But that was, here we go. I'm not in Kansas anymore. I went far away from home and didn't know what I was getting into. But anyway, so figured that out the hard way and got an IQAir at the end and was able to really breathe well for the last year I was there. Took me a long time to develop the sensitivity to understand when things were in the air. Now, if I'm walking around anywhere in the world and I sense this same type of air or type of thing in my throat, like some of these intuitions, they take a long time to develop in you. And then once you have a clean environment, they will speed up. Because once you have a clean environment, your environment's like, okay, this is what clean equals. It's kind of like homeopathy. It's like, oh, we're going to have you vibrating at a certain level, which is a little higher than the one you're vibrating on. And we're just going to keep informationally letting you feel that. And then your body's like, okay, that's what that feels like to be at that higher level or whatever. And so it's like a educational, informational thing that allows the body to recalc itself to where it should be. And so it's the same thing with a safe space. If you have a safe space in your room with the air is you need fresh air. You can't just leave an air conditioner, an air purifier on. So you have a window open when you sleep. And unless it's like freezing or whatever, maybe you find some other, you have to leave it open, an hour during the day in the morning, and then maybe, a little bit at night or whatever. You might have to find another combination. But it's different having fresh air come in than having it all run through central air conditioning systems, which dry the air out. They take the iodine out of it. There's a drying process that happens. So you want to get the air as fresh as possible, and then you want to filter it if you have bad air. Some places are lucky, some coastal areas, and Charleston was great. There was a lot of iodine in the air, and I know that in Greece they don't really have much iodine deficiency. It's just a bunch of islands and all that iodine coming off the ocean. So not all oceans seem to produce that same effect. California is kind of an iodine weak coast, which is strange, but maybe not. It's just different types of oceans, algae and plankton systems, and there's just different types of things that create that, that convert that, make things volatile, etc. You have the heat of the sun, humidity helps, and it's very dry here, so there's a lot of factors. But yeah, clean your environment, and then your body will catch up to you. It'll be like, okay, now you've shown me what clean is. Now I'm going to show you when it's not clean, And so then you'll get like a little, I can't even describe how it feels, but imagine just like a little white little point here that just appears in your sensation. I don't know how to explain it. And it's like, okay, something's in the air, something's there, And so it took me a while to develop that, but now there's solutions to it. And you don't have to live like a maniac, like with all sorts of obsessions and crazy stuff. Yeah, I had to do that at first because I had to figure all this stuff out, but most people don't. You buy one of these things, they're really sexy, attractive, they look great. People ask questions about it. You're breathing clean air. People are actually jealous of you. They're like, wow, okay, he's figured something out. And it looks really stylish, it's from Switzerland. It has this, anyway. So none of this stuff is really off-putting. It's just a question of knowing about it. So medical air, straight from Switzerland. And then you can see part 2 of the video where we talk about just like a natural remedy to get the stuff moving on the inside, outside of like other food things. When you're getting sick or you kind of stay away from sugar, dairy, and even wheat. You kind of just stay away. Dairy and wheat are not allergies per se. They're actually just hard levels of digestion in the body. So they're kind of like limits. Like these are harder for the body to digest. And so whenever they show up, when you're sick, you're like, okay, I don't want to challenge the body in that way. So you pull away from those and you let yourself heal. You have potatoes instead of bread, and soup and broth and stay away from the dairy and everything, and then just let it all heal. Once it heals, you can maybe bring it all back in as long as they're good forms of those things, meaning high iodine, fermented milk, or things coming from soils from Latvia, from the Russian stores, or different milks imported if you can. You can find imported farmer's cheese from, not, be careful with the labels because half of the imports in America are actually not imported. But if you're paying attention, you'll find them, especially if you go to like Russian shops. And so you can find cheese that works with raw honey, and it's a good way. It's like tastes like cheesecake, but it's a good way to find a better substitute once you're out of the sickness. And then sometimes even the mucus and all that stuff that we hate from eating certain products, they're actually cleaning us out. Some of the raw milk, the Jersey milk with high iodine that you're using, and you're like, oh my God, it gives me a little mucus. Well, sometimes that mucus is not always bad, because sometimes you're going through like a detox process, which they're always uncomfortable to a certain degree. I mean, small, but uncomfortable. So the lactoferrin, which is in the milk, is coming into the lungs and just coating it everywhere. And that lactoferrin is the iron in that is fighting a lot of toxins in there, So it's helping to push that stuff out, and like a sword. So you need that every once in a while. So it doesn't mean you have to drink milk every day, but raw Jersey milk, custard, or farmer cheese type of imported soil milk that you can find, unless you live in a place that has high iodine milk, which I did in Charleston, but I don't in California. Then just it's better to stay away and just, stick with butter, imported butter, and find another, like a workaround, like more broth for the calcium, more herring for the calcium, the heads of the chicken bones because they've been cooked long enough, like whatever. There's a lot of ways to get these things. Toasted almond soup from Spain, which is interesting. There's a lot of ways to get the calcium into the body if you can't get the milk. So anyway, American Indians, just to finish with this, they developed their own milk using marrow and ground up bones that were digested through vinegar. They were cooked. And so they were able to create this pasty bone structure mixed with marrow, and they created a milk, and they gave it to nursing women and children, and it was like their own milk creation. So even though they didn't have milk, they understood the power of calcium and fat together. So anyway, there you go.